Oh, hey, everybody. How's it going?
Hello, hello. Good,
Hello.
good.
Very good.
Hey, Mohammed. How are you doing, sir?
It's great to be here. I'm very, very good. It's sunny in Seattle. I think words I don't normally say.
Whoa.
Cat is enjoying his time behind me, making my computer overheat. So that's fun to see.
Well, that is exactly what cats should be doing, right? So that is it's good to see your cat is healthy and wise. What we'd be thinking, for a cat.
Yeah.
Christina, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's sunny here in Kentucky too, which is insane, but I'm gonna take it. Yeah. How are you doing, Chris?
Uh, I am doing fabulous. It's Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes, it is.
Well,
This is
so
actually
maybe.
my first Valentine's Day with my husband in person. So,
Oh, all right. Well, we're gonna. I've redone my lights and everything, so I'm in Valentine's Day mood. So excited to have you guys here. Let's leave in chat what you have planned up for Valentine's Day. Is this your Valentine's Day celebration with Christina Mohammed and myself?
if so, I'm sorry we didn't bring candy.
It's very awkward to distribute. There's no APIs for candy. It's just it's hard.
It's so
So
true.
sad.
Nobody sent us their addresses for some reason.
Hey, Mohammed, uh, we know you. We love you. We're huge fans of all of the work that you do. And in fact, later in this live stream, we're going to show the latest thing that Mohammed has done to personally help me out. I'm kind of excited about that. Um, but Mohammed, do you want to introduce yourself to the live stream because people may not know you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. Hey everyone, my name is Mohammad Ali. Yes, very renaissance of the boxer, float like a bee, sting like a butterfly. No, it's the other way around. I get it the wrong way around because when I grew up in school, that was the statement that they used to say. I'm the GPM for Power BI, so I look after the Power BI service, the Power BI desktop, what my team does, and so I've been in Power BI ever since we G8. So I've been here for a very long time. I got to see the product evolve, change, evolve again, change again. So I've been through many phases of the product. And yes, I mean, I'm so great. I've known Chris for a very long time. I think we met back maybe like in 2019, 2018. And so it's been great to work with Chris on many things.
Yeah,
I might got the years wrong, so I'm sorry. It was before
no,
COVID.
I think you're right. Did we meet in DC in 2017?
I think we did.
Yes. Okay.
I think we did.
So way
It
back
was a long time ago.
in the before times.
Yes, yes. Before COVID, anything before COVID, I just like it's out of my memory. It's
DC.
gone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I'm so glad that you're here, and that we can talk more about all the incredible work that you and your team are doing. Uh, gonna gonna cue Christina up here though for
Yes.
some rules and whatnot.
So we have a couple of rules. They're nothing crazy. It matches Guyana Cube's rules, and these rules are for the chat. So rule number one: please preface any question that you have with a Q. That's going to help us queue up your questions. Queue up. And the goal here is that we don't lose it in the chat, right? So rule number two is going to be please don't repeat any questions. We will see it. We will get to it. If you are spamming the chat, we will kick you out, unfortunately. But the idea is to make that chat vibrant, lively. We want you guys in there. We want you participating. These are just rules that are going to help us do that better. So.
Yep. And if you want to join the conversation, the best experience is over on YouTube. We are live streaming on X and on LinkedIn. Both of those platforms are horrible at integrating chat experiences. So if you really want to ask questions, you need to head over to YouTube because that's just the best place to be. Okay. Now, Christina, do you want to do the question of the day too?
Oh yeah, go ahead and put it up. So the question of the day is, did you know that there was a fabric roadmap?
Are you even aware that that's a thing?
Some people may not know that there's actually plans and potentially, you could understand what's coming in fabric. You don't have to guess and wait and hope and pray. There is a roadmap. So did you know? Put it in the chat.
Yep. Leave it in the chat if you knew that. We're not asking if you've gone there or not, but if you haven't, it's really easy. It's aka.ms/fabric roadmap, and you can find out all the great things there. Mohammed, I've got a question for you. So you're a PM of the entire fabric space. How much time do you
Power BI.
What's that?
For Power BI specifically,
Power BI.
But Fabric is my manager owns all of Fabric, so yes.
Who's your manager?
Kim. So
Oh,
Kim look after the Fabric.
Wrong live streams.
Yeah.
All good. Okay, cool. No, well, I guess what I was going to ask is, can you talk to us about the effort you put into building out and managing the roadmap? Because the Power BI roadmap's been out there for 5-ish years, right? Maybe, no, that feels right. 5 years the roadmap has been out and publicly available. I mean, you've had a roadmap for 7 or 8 from what I've seen, but that was in the NDA times where we couldn't talk about that. But it's been public and available for like 5-ish years. Can you talk to us about what goes into building out a roadmap, the Power BI roadmap?
So it's funny you mentioned this because we are going through, so every 6 months, both Fabric and Power BI, so it's actually agnostic, so I'll speak for both of them. We go through this planning exercise, and so we align, I'll explain why we align to this model in a second, but we align to April to October, we call that semester 1 or wave 1, you may have seen different words, and then October to April, the corresponding October to April is wave 2, or summer and the fall plans. Well, I mean, there's different ways to kind of talk about it. What really starts off with, and we are on the journey right now doing our next April to October plans, is what we try to do is we collect information from all the different places that we normally see feedback. And so we look through ideas, we look through our enterprise voice program where our top enterprises give us feedback. We also go through forums. We look at our feedback surveys for both like our creators and consumers. And so we basically look at all these different signals, and I'm sure I'm missing some. And then we collate a list of things that we want to do. And then we draw, that list is also aligned with where do we want to go as an organization. So normally our main focus for most products is driving usage and satisfaction. We want to get more people using the product, and we want to drive, hopefully those people are happy using the product as well. And so technically we effectively have 2 big buckets of things, and say, okay, where do our items fall in this bucket? And then we try to prioritize, and prioritization can lead to many discussions, and then we effectively come to a list. And then it's funny because we don't put every minute detail in the plans. So we try to categorize it to something that we think customers will understand and that will appreciate. And then we effectively put them into the release plan, and then those get publicly made available. Now, not everything gets publicly made available. Some things we hold out for conferences, so you don't get to see everything in one big go, but we try to be as transparent as possible. And specifically me, if you guys know me, I'm extremely on the one side of the transparency, to the extent that I'll update the ideas as soon as I know we've done our plans, just so you guys get the latest and greatest. And I know you don't get notifications from the idea site, but I'll very honestly tell you if something's going to get done or funded, or if we're having conversations about it, so you guys get that initial signal to know whether you can rely on something or not. So that's really kind of the operations that go through, and it's true for Fabric as well. Power BI is no different here.
Well, and honestly, I will say that I really appreciate when I'm told that's not going to move forward, right? I love hearing that because that tells me one of 2 things. Well, it actually tells me 2 things. Number 1, don't expect it, make other plans.
Yeah.
Number 2, if it's something that's really important, then that's where like the campaigning and the marketing has to start happening, where like the ideas. Oh, I'm pointing up, and I should be pointing down. Where going over to the ideas site is super important for people to go out and fill stuff out.
Yeah.
And now I'm familiar with the ideas site, so where you can go put ideas out and people can vote for it. How often? And I know you said you go out there and look at that. How much does this influence you?
So so what I try to do, and I'm the designator for Power BI. So each product
Mm-hmm.
in Fabric has a designator. So my team are the designators. And what we try to do is for the planning cycle, we look at the top. I try to go to like at least top 50 of the ideas, and so we try to look at it by number of votes, and that's why the number of votes makes a difference here. And we try to go through it. Now, in Power BI, I think we've reached a point where some things on that list are literally like massive, massive redesigns. And so you'll
Right.
see 2 items on that list that you're like, hey, it's on the top. Why have you not guys done it? And there's a lot of infrastructure that we need to do. So it's been very hard to commit to. Now, the one that I'm talking about is matrix column, like allowing nested columns on matrices. And that item we started a while ago, like as in it's still not marked as planned. And that's the reason why is there's so much infrastructure because our product was never designed to do that. But we are slowly plugging away at it. And so like soon we're going to be announcing visual calcs. You might have seen a demo of it. A lot of that plumbing is somewhat being targeted there, of just setting up places in the future so that we could go and do that effort. It's not completely a like for like, but that's an example of where like I would say Power BI has matured to the extent that there are ideas that are so expensive. Like I'm talking about multi-year efforts. But we try to look at the top 50, and like you'll see like specifically in the last 2 years, like some examples. Like if you look at the idea side, you'll see that in the top 10 or the top 20, I think over 50% of them are in the plan state now, where that was not true prior to 2 years ago. And so we are making a lot more investments, and it changes. Like our goals change every so often as an organization. Like sometimes it's to drive like figuring out how we drive more distribution. Sometimes it's to figure out how we drive more creators, and sometimes it's figure out how do we make consumers happy in the product. So we can't obviously do everything. We don't have infinite resources, but we really try to figure out what is our key theme for this upcoming semester. And like the one that we're going into now, we're really thinking about how do we get creators to do more and leverage more of what Fabric has to offer, because there's a lot of value of just in Fabric that customers just don't realize. Like every time I talk to a customer, like, what is Fabric? Which is like exactly where Power BI was 10 years ago. It's very synonymous of the conversation that we had 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? Because I can remember, and this was like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I think you might have been in the conversation. You might have been the guy who actually wrote the notes. But we talked about what came out to be like the composite models. Like, hey, I want to be able to join two semantic models together and do something. And like we went deep, and at one point in time, I think there was 88 items on a list of technology necessary to make that happen. And like you guys like worked through it, right? Like, okay, so what's like what's the order? What's the priority? Let's get these in. And then like you rolled out features where people were like, well, why would I want this? Like, well, maybe that isn't super helpful in and of itself, but now composite models, right? And so now in retrospect, we're like, this is fantastic. Christina,
A lot
have
of
you used
makeup
composite
videos, they
models?
do. A lot of
Yeah.
makeup video tutorials, they say trust the process, right? Like you might not really actually need that line on your face, but later on it'll blend to what you want, right? I think we end up having to trust the process a lot with these roadmaps. But
holy cow, yeah. That's exactly it.
yeah. But no, I absolutely love reading through the roadmaps because it helps me figure out kind of maybe what the theme is, The only downside, and I'm sure you guys deal with this all the time, is if I'm really excited about something, maybe I tell a customer about it, that it's coming, and then it gets pulled off the roadmap and I might not notice, right? Like if I don't notice that it's pulled off and then I'm really excited about it and I look for it later, I'm like, oh no, when did that go away? But otherwise, I mean, I think it's a really powerful tool, right? It gets us excited. It gets us looking for those features. So I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you so the Matrix thing, right? And you list off your other 88 things you need for that, right? Now, when you look at those individual features, do you curate from the idea site to find where people have identified how they'd want that to work? Does that influence your design at all?
So yes. So what normally happens is, and we've done this exercise for Power BI for a while, so like it's not alien to us. Is we try to our best, like specifically ideas is a good example of this one.
Mm-hmm.
Is we try our best to actually understand and cost it t-shirts, which requires someone getting deep into it. So in general, all of them have t-shirt sizes. We roughly understand the cost. For the ones that are like confusing to us, there are some ideas that are weird. Then it's like ideas is not a great way to communicate. Then we go and ask customers, and that's when we get the additional signal from of like, hey, how important is this, and what does this even mean to you? And yeah, so we do end up it's called t-shirt costing, if you guys are like aware of the concept, where we try to make sure we go through each item and at least understand it ourselves or what it's asking for.
Trying to understand how much fabric is needed.
Yeah.
I couldn't help myself.
So the downside is yes. I mean, a lot of jokes about that, and I'm here for all it.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, and honestly, I've for those of you who don't know about this, like Microsoft and I mean, Mohammed's good at this, but the Fabric team, the Power BI team, has been great at this for a long time. That was actually my convert from Tableau to Power BI story, because I was a Tableau admin and I was started to work on like this alpha version of this new thing called Power BI, because I like oh my gosh, what was the thing in Excel? Power View. I like Power View. And someone pulled me into a call about this new thing that was going to be Power BI, and I started to play with it. And I said on a forum, I said, gee, it'd be great if I could sort my matrix. If I could sort this, if I could just click on it. And like that afternoon, a PM called me and said, what does that mean to you? And I explained it to him. And like a week later, the build that went out had sorting. So you could actually click on things and sort it in the matrix. And I was like, holy cow, I had never seen any software development company on the planet like hear a customer ask a question, ask a validating question, and then deploy that out. Blew my mind. I said, okay, Tableau, you're done. Power BI is the way to go. So that is.
No, I think there's many examples of that. Like I know it's like harder now for us to do that because like we can't, like regressions are a pain, and everyone knows that, and people want quality from us. But at the start of the infancy, like to produce a build was very quick. To produce and validate that build was quick. We had less features then, so then less integration testing is required, and we were able to basically, and then that's the thing that I think is what's going to enable Fabric to succeed as well, is every week a new piece of Fabric is shipped. Every week. And that level of rapidness is something that people neglect of why we've been successful in Power BI.
Yeah. And it is that, I mean, you have to be approaching a decade of integration testing that's been scripted out and added into your CI/CD pipelines.
Yep.
I don't know of anyone else that has a decade of that in place. That is awesome. But that's probably a completely different question. I did promise I was going to show something, so I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and just kind of show you something. So, and yes, we are all about the Valentine's Day here. So we've got Valentine's Day lights here. But I actually, and I did a video on this because I was so grateful that it was working. So Mohammed, thank you for this. But if you're wondering what the heck is it that Mohammed does, what does he own? So he owns this surface, right, Mohammed?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And so we had an issue where there was a feature that allowed us to. Oh no, I'm gonna. Yeah, where this menu used to, you could configure it to be more than just this. You could configure it. Oopsies. To actually have this files button here, and this files would then take you over to like one, like a OneNote site, and you can configure that and get that up and running. And at one point in time, it wasn't working. And let me show you how you. Oh my gosh. You could figure that by setting up your workspace OneDrive right here.
Nice.
So when you click on that files, it just takes you into this, right? Now that wasn't working for whatever reason, and we don't have to get into why it wasn't. But this ticket got somehow got escalated over to Mohammed, and Mohammed, you fixed it. So you fixed the glitch. Thank you so much.
It was a hard one. As we made a lot of changes for the workspace. Like we now label pinning, and I think there was like a regression, and so Chris kindly created a support ticket, and it hit the wrong team, and they were asking me like, do you know which team they should go to? And then that's how me and Chris got involved. But I'm glad that we could get it working. I said I did not myself know about that feature. I had no looking in the product that they're so vast. Like I didn't know. I was like, do we support that? Was my first question, Chris.
Is that a thing?
That a thing?
And I think it was Reza Rad. We found an old screenshot from his website. We're like, look, it may be in black and with the white text, but like this seriously was here not that long ago, and it's not there now. But you went through and you fixed it, and don't send him emails on all these little things, right? But yeah, it was a cool little feature to fix. So thank you, sir.
No worries.
So I have a question for you, Mohammed. We've been talking a lot about, regression and whatnot. What led you to where you are in Microsoft right now? What's kind of been your roadmap?
Okay, I suppose it's I have a very interesting non-normal path to PM. So I graduated in the UK. So I worked in I graduated from the UK, and I joined Microsoft Consulting Services. And so it's called MCS, and I was a developer. I did computer science. I was a pure developer. So I worked for Microsoft, lent me out to companies. I worked on BI solutions, but also just pure engineering, like writing C# front end or back end, whatever the code was. And then we developed a kind of strategy for like how Power BI should, like this is when Power BI launched, how Power BI should be more involved in the advanced analytics space. And we proposed that to James Phillips, who was at the time the CVP for Power BI, and he basically said at a time when I visited at Redmond, like, you should come work for the Power BI team. And so then I moved from the UK to the US. I then worked under the Power BI team, and then Arun, who is now the CVP for Power BI, or was the CVP for Power BI at some stage, now owns Azure Data, so he's moved on to bigger and better things. He just joined at the same time as I did as well, and so then he became my manager at some point. We worked on something called solution templates, which is to help people kickstart their journey in Power BI. And then I was doing engineering and PM then. I was PMing it, and it's a bad combination when the PM and the engineering person. It's a very difficult conversation and an easy conversation at the same time. And then I went to pure product management, and then fortunately, like I always got to work on the end-to-end side, so I was very familiar with ETL and that. So when I joined Power BI as a proper PM, I owned Q&A, and I took over Q&A. So I worked on like the drop-down menu for Q&A, and I took over data flows as well. And those were like when they had shipped, I became the PM for them, and then I briefly owned usage metrics, and
wow.
It was more of like just figuring out what next to do with it rather than actually go and drive the plan for it. And then I owned like exploration capabilities, then I owned apps, and then desktop, and then self-service, which is what I own now. So
wow.
All pretty much under the Power BI org. I did start my journey as a developer, and I worked in machine learning. So I was an ML guy as well for a while. So that's how I'm now involved in the Copilot space. So I have a bit of knowledge of like what happened there. And so yeah, I've been working at Microsoft for like 13 years. I'm still quite young. I think myself as young, but I started off when I was 21 in Microsoft. So a lot of people are shocked at how I started at such an early age, because my birthday's in June, and so like the school year term ends, and I was able to join Microsoft at that journey. So yeah, I was very fortunate, and I've seen Microsoft. I'll have probably the 15-year plaque before most people would at Microsoft.
Wow. Incredible.
That's a good thing or not, but yeah. But yeah, I've been here and I thoroughly enjoyed my time. And the Power BI team, I always say, like when people ask me when I hire for the Power BI team, I say this team operates extremely different than the rest of the Microsoft organization, culturally and the things. And like I've been with these people for a very long time now, so like as Chris said, like one of the things that we talk about our DNA and like just responding to customers, like my VP, and I love him for this. Like if there's a comment on that blog post that's not answered, we don't make guarantees on SLAs on the blog post, but my VP checks it so much so that I have a job that runs and pulls the comments that I then ping my team about. And it's just that level of drive that we have for making sure you guys at least get responses, and transparently responses. We care so deeply about, and that's like one of the key things I think separates Power BI out from our competitors, and even within Microsoft as well, from many other products as well.
Yeah,
awesome.
I have never seen someone demonstrate on such a long timeline a love of the product, of the community, of what the goal is, right? Because that's the only way I can describe it is a love, because and that's why it's Valentine's Day. It's perfect, right? That passion for it's so broad inside of the Power BI space that I mean, organization. It's from Arun to Amir to Guy in the Cube to Matthew Roach to yourself to I mean, like everyone inside of Power BI is just, and I'm Kim. I'm forgetting, like it's a big organization. How many people are in the Power BI team? I can't list them all. I'm terribly sorry. How many people are in Arun's org now?
I wish I know it's like a lot. Like he look after like notebooks, Spark, SQL, like SQL Server, as well as just SQL in data warehousing. So I assume it's in the thousands, but I actually don't know.
Okay.
I don't think I can even check, but I am sure if I ask Arun, he can tell me, and then tell me how he sleeps well at night. I think that's the large, but he does such a good job of it. And
well, he really does, and he's constantly engaged. And I can remember when Fabric was announced, and it was like 4 days later, someone asked a question on Twitter, and he responded in 13 minutes. I'm like, okay, dude, wow, it's crazy, right? And it was like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. I mean, 3 a.m. for me, but I guess that's 1 a.m. for you. I don't know, but
something
still
like that,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still early, yeah.
So, if we go back to like the roadmap and what you've got coming out, a lot is around Copilot, because you brought this up too. Can you talk to us about how are you making decisions on which areas that you should be investing in and exploring in? Like, not looking for like you can't tell us a lot of stuff, but like how does that decision process work for like, hey, we're going to do Copilot to do this, right?
Okay, so let's talk about Copilot and how we think about it. So it's funny because like the whole company has made a strategic shift to making sure that we make Copilot work. Like it's at the CEO level, because of our partnership. And people forget that we actually worked on GPT-2 before any of this became popular. There was GPT-2, which not many people know about. Power BI was one of the first teams that integrated with that. So the NL to DAX feature today uses a fine-tuned model on top of GPT-2. Like That was the first thing. So before any of this became available, if you're wondering why that capability does not work or behave the same way as ChatGPT, it's using a much, much older model, like 2 generations out. So you're looking at a very old model. Even though it's trained on like specific data, it's 2 generations out. And that's, we're going to improve it. We're working on to improve it. But for me, learning about what the technology is possible, capable of, and then figuring out what we could do, is very odd that we do it that way around. Normally we start off with the user problem and then figure out where the tech is. In the specific cases for Copilot, the tech was very capable at specific things. It's very good at business domain, understanding and like replicating things it may have seen in the wild. And so that's why we really focused on like, okay, it sounds like it can help report creators because it's seen enough examples on the web to gather that information. And so that's how we really started with it. And then the other one was this, a lot of people have questions. There's questions out in the wild in the internet. It's probably learned what are related fields, what are related values. And so that's the 2 main problems we're looking at for Copilot are helping people create reports and then helping people solve questions. We stopped at those 2 problems. We at some stage, it was unfathomable that we had 20 or 50 problems that we can go solve the product. Help people share, help people find random features. And we really try to condense it to like, these are the 2 core problems. Let's, in the next year, try to solve these 2 really well and lay the foundations. Because if we solve them very well, I think we can then have a good foundation to then proceed. And that was the aim. So for Copilot, for the next 6 months, and I can share like I've been very vocal about like our roadmap for Copilot is we're going to continuously improve these 2 vectors. And like answering questions against the data, your data model, we already have Q&A, but Q&A has a lot of limitations that Copilot aims to solve. It understands your business very well, it understands the domain very well, helps you with ambiguity, allows you to have a conversational aspect. So like an example that we have, so we're in private preview for that capability right now. So customers are trying it out. And an example is we use the flight data, the very common data, and said like, hey, show me flights from Alaska. And what it did was it said going from Alaska. It just did a very simple, if you just use Q&A today, it just does a very simple filter statement where it finds Alaska in the country column. And what you're looking for is where I'm going to Alaska, like where the destination airport is Alaska. And it's hard for you to fathom that. And what we did with it in part of the experience is we asked Copilot to be like, someone's having a conversation. Tell the user what, like you had a choice, you did this, but you could have done these other things. And this is where like the value of ChatGPT and Copilot really comes in handy. And so for me, like we're gonna be releasing more and more things for you to ask more questions, supporting more why kind of questions, allow you to interrogate your data more. So that's one vector. The second vector is report creation. We want to help people create reports, do things, and a lot of that isn't just ChatGPT. It's just us funding the items, like allowing you to change the layout dynamically. Like to move, like imagine you want to like you have this perfectly laid out report, but you want to put something now somewhere else, but it's not. You have to then go and move 20 other things around. We want to make that journey super simple, and ChatGPT can help. And so for us, really making that report creation journey simpler, allowing you to just type in and say, can you color this line red, like to save you from going finding in the format pane all of the options. We're trying to really make that journey simpler. But I also stress that NL or natural language is still like a modality people are getting used to. So we know it's going to take time for people to adjust to that modality. That's why we're trying to make Copilot work along with point and click. It's not a completely, like we're saying it's an enhancement to the existing capabilities, not so much of a diversion from that. And so that's really the 2 areas, and you're just going to see us invest heavily in these 2 areas. And like we're just making improvements. We're upgrading to GPT-4 Turbo, which is a new model that we have access to. So you should start seeing more and more accuracy, and the technology is evolving so fast. Like I think every 6 months a new model comes out, we then absorb it. So we'll start seeing less hallucinations, more accurate results, more understanding of business domain, more understanding of your data set. And so those things will just naturally enhance that experience that you're going to see, that you see already now that's available. And today we're very in infancy. Like you probably like used it, Chris. I think you did a video that I think was shared around when you shared that video of like, hey, you know, Chris has given his thumbs of seal of approval that it actually, you know, provided some value. But we want to get much better here as well. Like today it does one big bang to create your report. People don't build reports like that. They build it in stages. They, you know, they adjust their mind, they change their mind, and so we're really trying to drive the conversation aspect to a lot of those capabilities that we have in the product today. And that's pretty much the roadmap. Like I just shared it with you guys. That's like that's practically it. There's like obviously like very minute detail of exactly what's going to support. We're still figuring that out. We're going on a planning exercise right now.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, that whole like, hey, help me do X in the service, I would still really like that. Like,
Yep.
so maybe a hackathon could hold that forward. I don't know. You know, if that's a possibility, I would love to see that come through.
Yep.
But yeah, I honestly, I'm really impressed with the Power BI visual, like how that works. It seems like it's very good. Like, does there need to be iterations? Yes, but like you go from nothing to something fairly like reasonable that you could like start with right away. And I love the integration with Python and learning how to do that. I mean, I've done some Python projects because I knew I had Copilot, and like, okay, I don't know Python, but I can use Copilot, and Copilot knows Python, so now I can do that. So that works out good. So I'm excited to hear that you're exploring down that path.
Yeah.
I
To
would
that
love
end,
to see Copilot
yeah.
even expand to visual best practices, right? We've got all these visual design companies out there who have put together those types of best practices, lots of science around where you should put things on a page. I think that'd be an awesome another next step, right?
For sure, for sure. I didn't talk about data cleaning Copilot or data flows Copilot. They have their own as well. It's amazing that capability of just like trying to find the operation to like transform a column. It's hard sometimes. It's just sometimes you just don't know where it is. Like even an expert user just forgets where they put it or where in the ribbon it is. And I found Copilot just to be so amazing at just finding things that you know exist, but you just don't know where it exists.
Or maybe what it's called, right? You might not even know that.
So I'll share one more thing. So I would have shown it, but I'm not allowed to until after next week. Next month. So every I can share what happens. So like you guys get a taste. Every year we do this thing called Gartner Bake Off. So the Gartner, the team that runs the Magic Quadrants, they get vendors to come in and do a British Bake Off against each other. So me, I'm doing this year's one, and so I'm attending the conference. It's in Orlando this year and in London, and it's they give us a data set that we then basically have to clean, and then we have to then take that. And normally, like last year was looking at flooding. So I was talking in terms of flooding. This year it's going to be looking at poverty. And what was interesting is this year, like I have 1,000 measures of things that could drive poverty or things that could drive flooding if I used it from last year. I used Copilot to generate me a report. And it was able to first understand what's the industry way to measure poverty. Look, it's not just called poverty in the data set. It's not like something naive. I struggled to find it. 1,000 measures. I was typing in the word poverty. I was like, this is not it. Typing in something else. This is not it. I used Copilot and said, I'm trying to analyze poverty and what like influences poverty. The generated report it gave me was so great and shocking that the team that so I was doing rehearsals recently. The team watching me do the rehearsals just stood there and they were like, did you manipulate that in any way? I was like, nothing. And I just typed it in raw, and it was just. I'm hoping you guys will get to see it. I'll obviously share a blog after the Gartner Bake Off, just so you guys can see what happened. But it was able to understand.
Oh, come on, show it to us. I mean,
I can't
possibly happen.
It's the data set is not available to share, but I will share a blog. But it was able to pick out, and I was so shocked myself. I was like, is this the way you measure poverty? And it was able to find those fields for me. And this is where, like, again, I'm not an expert in poverty, but I was tasked with creating it. In the same way that most of our users, analysts, are tasked with creating an ad hoc report to understand what's happened here. Those scenarios happen so often, and it gave me such a great platform to start off with, and the report design was great as well, that I was just sat there and I was just like, wow. Like, I was like, look, as a product owner, like, I'm always, I understand how the inner thing works, right? So I know where it hit limits. And it was just amazing that it analyzed 1,000. I had over 1,000 measures of things that could influence poverty, along with poverty somewhere stashed in that data set. I had no idea where. And I just typed in like poverty and like, does it have any influence with health? Is there any like correlation between them? And it was, the result it returned was like so amazing that I was like, there's going to be a lot of things when this gets like more reliable, when it gets more accurate, like this is going to truly change the way I work. And like you see a lot of people, specifically on X, saying how ChatGPT has changed my life. 10 ways to improve your productivity. I think a lot of people who are embracing it early are going to really benefit from it later as well.
Yeah, I mean, and actually that's an excellent point, right? Like, and this is true for any MVP feature. It is good to work with it and understand what it can do, even if it's not necessarily everything you want today, right? Maybe it's going to address 80% of your needs. Well, if it addresses 80% of your needs, can you easily then augment for the other 20%? Okay, that's great. What you're describing that's unbelievable. I mean, the amount of energy and work and back and forth that could go into, like, hey, I put together a report. Here's some measures I pulled out of the 1,000. Is this any valuable?
Yeah.
Or is this valuable? Like, I mean, how many times have you sat in a meeting with business users where they go, yeah, this is stupid. You're stupid, right? You're not stupid. You don't know the business, like how that functions, right? But they come in and they tell you you're stupid, so you go, okay, I'm dumb, but you're not, right? Like, you're just not, you don't know that. And oh, this is so exciting. So exciting.
And like just to note, like in previous years when we did the Bake Off for Gartner, like it would take us weeks to like get the story figured out for like the data set, analyze the data set. I tried it out. I was like, you know what, maybe it'll help slightly. And the Bake Off preparation time was like massively reduced. Like the insight that I got from it was just like, okay, cool. Like not only did it help me understand story, but it was also able to add contextual information. Like it was like 2015, the poverty peaked in the EU because of the EU debt crisis, and it just had this additional knowledge that I'm sat there going, oh my god, yeah, that happened in 2015. Oh my god, that had a profound effect on poverty. Oh my god, and just these several statements are just like, wow, like it's almost helped me tell my own story. So it's done my job for me. And a lot of people joke like, hey, and I hear this, like when I go and present Copilot, they're like, okay, I'm out of the job. And I was like, Copilot is going to augment people's and make you more productive and drive more productivity. I don't see it replacing jobs. It's not, I can't leave it autonomously. Like there's a lot of like this scenarios where like it does not do necessarily always the correct thing. And I'm there. There's always human reaction required. We're not sadly there in the world of iRobot where machines are going to take over. We're nowhere near then. I also think that's just the wrong way to look at these kind of tech. It's really to drive productivity boosts and allow you to do more. So,
right, you should be learning two things. You should be learning how these things work, right?
Yep.
Playing with it, learning how you can take it to advantage. And then you should also be purchasing your shotguns and stopping up on ammo and like learning how to like shoot out that IR AI. So it's two different paths, right? You just go down both paths. And
I actually see it more like a stagecoach driver when the car gets invented, right? Do they learn to become a taxi driver, or are they out of a job? Like,
yeah.
Just because it can do it more efficiently doesn't mean that it doesn't need you.
For me, it's like the analogy for taxis is like the yellow cabs to Uber. Like that's the kind of revolution that we're going through. So like we still need people to drive the vehicles, but like there's just a different mechanism.
Yeah.
And I think that's more there's more and more drivers actually these days than ever before, and I think that's what we're going to see is more and more people are going to be able to be analysts now than ever before. Actually, it's actually going to be the opposite. You're going to be hiring more to go and do more, and I think a lot of companies obviously always look at the cost saving benefits. I think that's the wrong place to kind of start. Is for me the what can you now do understand is going to be the big kicker that people are going to miss.
Yeah, you're spot on. How can we leverage this to make more money in different areas by bringing analytics to more people?
Yeah.
Right? Like the number of people who can look at a big table and understand what's going on is really small.
Yep.
The number of people who can look at like a line chart and understand a trend is a little better, but it's not everyone, right? How, this AI is going to explain it in a way that people can understand and relate to and ask questions of. And yeah, you're spot on. I mean, I published at one point in time, I published a natural language generation. It was a newspaper. It said news on the top. And it was literally, it was all of the like big KPIs and whatever from the organization. And that went out to executives. And like I had like the number of people who hit it wasn't huge, but the percentage of executives that opened it on a daily basis was crazy, right? Because they could go in and it was like reading a news article, like what's going on in my business today, and Copilot's going to bring that. And not just to the executives, but to everyone in your company. You mentioned a feature in there I don't know anything about. How can I see like what other news events are correlated with something that's going on within my data? Is that a feature that we can do? How'd you do that?
Copilot does it somewhat for you now. Like if it understands the data enough and it can bring in outside knowledge. I don't believe I'm aware in the next 6 months at least for us to go and merge public data sources. It's always come up. Like the most common example is you can ask Copilot what happened on October the 15th. And you can do that now. Like that was not possible prior to Copilot. You can do that now. The issue is Copilot is trained as of a specific, I think GPT-4 was trained as of last year, January. And I think that's where its up-to-date knowledge is, I think, or the year before that. So you are kind of limited on like today's news. But you can go back and do that. To actually start mingling public data sources, I don't think that, I know we have like ambitions to eventually support that, but I don't think there's an immediate plan. But like getting public domain knowledge, the problem is it's also highly subjective. Like, did it rain in the US? I mean, no, if you have the wrong granularity set, Copilot will still answer for you. in a
right.
obscure way. But
well, it would be great if you started to like be able to flavor in that stuff when the tech gets there, right? Like, hey, I would imagine we start with stocks and financial.
That's exactly what my head was thinking, Chris.
Right? And we all become like not like Bill Gates rich, but like not like
investors,
yeah. Let's be on top of that so that when that comes in, we can take advantage. Before we get to, I mean, this was a little bit ago, but there was a question in the queue that I do want to make sure that we ask here. Are there plans to add visual improvements on the PBI on-premise report servers as well as in the service?
So it depends what this one means. Like, are you talking about if referring to the Power BI desktop, like the reporting server bits that you get? If we make visual improvements, they do land there. They do make their way there. I assume they may be referring to SSRS or like the older version, and
or the Power BI on-prem server.
Yeah, like if we make changes to like the line chart, some of them do make their way there. Some, not all. And our investment is not like that. The technology stack is very different there, and so it's a lot harder. We don't have any plans to invest in that space. I say most of the growth, like a lot of customers are still, on like either a late journey to the cloud or early journey to the cloud. Power BI services like allows us to quickly iterate, quickly design. On-premise products in general are like suffering because that is still not a core focus area for Microsoft in general. Like with cloud first, you hear this, the motto is cloud first, mobile first, like it's in really supporting that view. And I still think myself, that's the correct strategy to go. Like I think there are scenarios where customers are still using heavily government-based scenarios are still using on-premise. So I know it's kind of sad for them, which is why we have government clouds and we've made investments in that space. But improving the core reporting server product, the older product, I don't think is a priority for our team.
And I think that makes sense, right? And I mean, honestly, especially if we're talking like the on-prem or the paginated reports, I think I would uh, rather see the investment be on the Power BI side versus the paginated reports side of the house. And I think people should use this pattern much more often, which is a Power BI report
Yeah.
that then has an embedded paginated report. So if you're going to like create some interactive capabilities, you do that with the tooling that is designed for visuals and designed for graphing. And if you need that detailed export capabilities, you do that in a paginated report that's then embedded, and then you filter and slice and I don't know how well this or fast this is going to work, but you go to something along these lines of a solution than investing more time or energy on the paginated reports. Now, clearly not as fast as we necessarily want it to be, but like my Power BI side was super snappy and fast. And now my detailed reports, I mean, that's not horrible, right? Like we did
Well,
this
and you can
live.
export this all at once, Chris. Right? That's the thing I like to think about is, paginated, and this is a totally different rabbit hole, but paginated, I think I'm always okay with a slightly longer load time because I'm never interacting with it like
Right.
I am a Power BI report.
Right. Good question. Okay, Mohammed, as you look to the future, and you look at the biggest things that you're working on. Now, I know Copilot's a big one. Let's say we set aside Copilot, right? Because that everyone talks about Copilot all the time. There was life before Copilot, and there'll be life after Copilot, and there's life outside of Copilot. What's the biggest feature you're looking forward to coming to the Power BI service that's not Copilot related?
The biggest feature that I am looking forward to, I have three that I'll mention. Two of them are released, and one of them has or is being, like, you guys are aware of it, but it's a long journey. The first one I'll say is that I think I always want to get more people to do data analytics, and I know that enterprises may not like me for this, but I do think getting more and more people to use Power BI, OneDrive, or SharePoint is going to start hopefully driving a behavior. I understand that there's governance concerns there, and I think there are ways we could help mitigate it, but getting everyone, and an example that I use, my sister, who still to this day does not use Power BI. Her organization does not, and it's a very large organization. They do not use it, and for me, that's like, it's just enabling everyone. And there's like a lot of issues, like Power BI service they're not able to use it, but they usually use OneDrive. They do want to share data. They do want to do all those things, and so for me, the OneDrive integration is very early. Like, we started off with just viewing a PBIX file in OneDrive. I'm hoping at some point we can invest in editing and co-authoring and giving effectively this full Office suite treatment to a Power BI file will hopefully drive a culture of more people being data driven. Like, there are a lot of people still, like, if you look at the Office users and look at the Power BI users, we're like a sliver compared to how many people use Office today. And for me, that's going to be a big driver for me, is continuously figuring out how we get more and more people to use data safely. So that's one feature that's released. We're making improvements to it, and I'm hoping we continuously make improvements to it. The second one is released in November, which many people don't see, and I think Explore and Sophia have a lot of correlations and similarities to where we're going to go in the future. But I think exploration, moving away from just traditional reporting, which is what Power BI is bread and butter, and moving to a more of an exploration view is going to open up, again, data to everyone. And so you're going to hear this theme, opening up, making more and more people being able to leverage data at the right times, and making the experience more seamless is been a passion of mine for a long time. And so I think Explore and where that direction goes. And the great thing about Explore is like, I give you an example. We're making stuff that's going to improve even down to reports. So, like, you're going to soon see that we're going to be announcing that on a matrix visual, you can actually start filtering directly on the matrix visual, just like on top of the headers. and it's like a
Ooh.
simple feature.
When is that coming?
I'll have to check back. I don't know the exact date, but I know we're like looking at like just to show you like when Explore needs it. It's an exploration feature, right? You want to interact directly. That will make its way back into the core product as well. So like the good thing is they're all architected on the same infrastructure. That's why I love making sure that we set ourselves up for success. But those kind of capabilities that can make their way into the product, and that's for me. Explore has a huge role. You've used Sophia, like I think Sophia is kind of the other side of the child of like, can I look at a mind map of Canvas? Can I rethink what the Canvas means? And I think Explore is doing that exact same goal, and I see them being very synonymous to each other. So for me, Explore has a lot of, and it's moving away from traditional BI. It's literally like, can we start off with an empty canvas, like Figma or like Photoshop? Can I just start off with an empty white space, and then you start going through your data and going down the different like rabbit holes and coming back up and iterating on an idea and then trying to just get to the answer. That is like today I do that on a canvas today on the report canvas. I've got 12 pages. I'm like, oh, I just really didn't want to have to do 12 pages. I just wish I could just see my journey as I got to this answer, not go through 15 pages later and then find my answer. So Explore is one of those other features that I would say is very good. And then the final one is I really want to make sure that like desktop is always going to have a place. We are heavily investing in desktop. There's the desktop separate team. People think we're going to deprecate desktop. I always laugh. I'm like, the desktop team is still standing, will continue standing. It's my team. We're not doing it. However, I always want to make sure we are at parity with the desktop to the service and service back to desktop. And so I don't want you to have to make a choice of, oh, I need to use this feature. Let me remember where this feature is available. Today, most of them exist in desktop, but not in the service. And so getting to parity is going to enable us to enable scenarios that you just couldn't think of. Like an example is like enabling to author in OneDrive and then coming back into desktop and then changing that file, just like you do in Office. Those are all blocked by the same piece of infrastructure work. And so just getting to parity from creation scenarios into the web is like the one that is expensive. We started about 2 years ago. It's still continuing on. Like a lot of infrastructure that needs to be put in place, but it's going to unlock so many scenarios and like ad hoc scenarios. Just imagine you're in an email, someone sends you a chart and you want to just edit the chart. Like it's not the right chart, or you want to say, okay, what about sales for by country? I just want to ask Copilot, can I actually make those modifications directly there? Can I add a measure directly there in the model? Like, can I and a visual calcs has a lot of plays here. Like for me, just enabling you to do it where you are working is such an important piece that is going to separate us out from any of our competitors. None of our competitors are going to remotely start looking at this area, and I think we are going to start heavily thinking about how we enable everyone to do better with data, and that's been my motto. Is that's our goal. That's our culture. Like drive a data culture, and for me that means everyone is using data at the right time. And so those are, I gave you three, not one, but those three are all intertwined, I'd say.
I absolutely love it. But we are nearly at time, so I'm going to not comment on those items. I'm going to give you a last word to Mohammed, and then I'll let Christina close us out. Mohammed, if you have any asks for our audience or for people who are watching this, how can we help you now that you've helped us so much?
And what are your cats' names? We also need to know that.
My cat, I have two cats. One is Sybil, and I'll just like hold the camera. They always join me for every meeting. Everyone knows this if they see me in meetings. I have one, she'll always attack the mouse mat, and then Django likes the heated nature of the computer, and he'll sit on the top. And so Django and Sybil, they don't have the names are not meant to they're not like the names are like from two different sources. So the names don't have any symbolic meaning. To answer the question, like one thing I really appreciate from this community, you guys ping me on Teams or ping me on X or ping me on Twitter. Like give us feedback. Like I mean, like you may think you're giving us feedback, but there are some features that don't get any feedback. Give us feedback for everything and anything at any time. We love to hear it. Yes, I'll be transparent if we're not funding it, if we don't have the funding. I have limited resources at my disposal. But please, please, please reach out to me like directly. Like I don't mind the DMs. I do not mind you guys reaching out to me on Twitter. Like, but please share the feedback with the team. Anyone in my team, we are always more than happy to help or see it. And is something that is driven in our culture, and I never want that to go from our culture. So that's how you guys can help us.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, happy Valentine's Day, everyone, and thank you for joining us, Mohammed. This was awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. See you guys.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Peace. Bye.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.